Hey guys, it's Sep, and I'm here bringing you another 45-45 league game. This is round 8. Round 7, my opponent never turned up, so an easy win for my team. This is the final round for this season. And I got paired against Mingpro, who is or was 1975. He played e4, and as I mentioned in previous videos, that I tend to sort of jump around defenses against e4 and d4, and I can't really stick on one. And this game's no different. So in my last game against e4, I played e5, which ended in a draw against Infernal Jumble. This time I went and played e4, and e4 is a move that I have some experience in. I used to play it quite a bit when I started seriously studying openings, and then went off it because I had some losses in my club, and then just sort of went, what's the point of playing this opening, and moved on to something else. But I recently decided to start picking it up again. Normally, I usually play, I haven't played it for a while actually, but my main defense is the Alekines or the Alyechians, depending on if you want to pronounce it correctly. But I've sort of steered away from this, especially in OTB games, because people tend to just, in my league and in my club, people just play knight c6. And it's just really irritating, even if you try going for something like this. You either get a knight f6 Scandinavian, which can occur like this, or you end up with a position, new variation, that ends up like this. And then probably something like that, and you end up in a French. I think this is a Steinitz French or classical French, which usually occurs this move order. Ooh. There we go, I was playing too quickly. Usually occurs in this move order. So I thought, if I'm going to end up in the French, I might as well just start studying the French again. So I've started playing e6, and I've had some enjoyable games with it. And I've had some games where I've had a really nice position and then blundered away like usual. But the games were usually fun and quite... what's the word? Thematic. Like, the ideas are fairly straightforward for black. And I've spoken to teammates who also play the French, and they're in agreement that the French defense is one of those defenses where if white wants to play a main line, they have to know the theory, or they can easily slip into a worse position where black can sort of play thematic moves and come out with an okay position. So it's usually on the onus of white to prove that black's plays passive or whatever they want to prove. So e6. So yeah, I've been booking up on the French. The one move that I've been coming across lots in Blitz is the exchange variation. I just every time I play against it, I just sigh and just want to kill myself. I've been looking at games where I'm playing a bit more active with black, and accepting an isolated pawn. And the position's been quite interesting playing this way. I'd looked at my opponent's games before this, and I noticed he didn't play this, which is why I was very keen to play the French in this game rather than something else. And I felt that this gave me an advantage from the get-go because I've swapped defenses against e4 quite a lot over the past 2 seasons. I don't think my opponents know what I'm going to play. So playing the French here and he always plays knight c3, and I have been studying the Winawer. As I discussed, I used to play knight f6, which I think in Simon Williams, I'm not sure if it's in his book or in his DVDs, or if it's just something that he's recommending after the fact he made those, but he recommends knight f6 and going into what's the variation? Is it something like this? I think it's this he recommends. No, it's not this. It's takes. It's there, takes, then this. And I think bishop takes than that. Yeah, this is the position he recommends. With the idea of going a6, b5, bishop b6, f5, which is interesting, but this isn't the sort of position I like playing. So I have been studying the Winawer. I've got the play the French book, and I'm trying to remember who wrote it. Is it John Watson? Something like that. Some guy wrote a book called Play the French. There's probably a million books called Play the French, but whatever. So I'm okay. A lot of the sidelines I'm a bit wishy-washy on, but luckily, going through my opponent's games, I realised he goes through this main line. So yeah, this is all main line. Takes, and now the main line is going, I believe, knight e7, inviting this. I think c7 is the main move, but I think I was studying a5. Yeah, I think this is the main line, and then takes, and then knight e7, knight e2, and then something like this, that. No. I'm just trying to look at my notes while I'm playing this. Yeah, and you get a position like this, and black castles queenside, and it's just very double-edged and an interesting position. I had also recently been watching Zibit's videos and noticed that he always plays this line, which is the Portisch-Hook variation, or otherwise known as the Black Queen Blues, or some people just call it the Queen A5 variation. And as I started looking at this line, like a couple of days later, Quirked did a stream going through the variations, like the main variations of this line, on the Chess League TV stream, which was very helpful because he explained the ideas very well, and I think a lot of the ideas stuck with me and helped me like just sort of battle through this game. So yeah, I was very keen to play this Queen A5 variation, which is very solid. So we went down the main line. Queen A4 is to stop A4 himself, and also targets on this C2 pawn. And now there are two main lines. So the main line, Queen G4, which my opponent played, and then there's also this line, Queen B1, which I've played a game against my friend Davey, who is also playing in the league, Davy Jones 01, and ended up with a nice win in that game. And then immediately after, he started studying the line and now plays Queen G4. But yeah, Queen B1 usually ends up... Oh, not Queen C1, Queen B1. So the threat in this position, Black's threatening to play that and winning the Queen. So Black's sort of forced to play this C5, locking up the position. I think there is another move. Yeah, I think Black can play just Knight C6, but I don't think it scores very well. I can't remember what the opening books say. But this is like overwhelmingly the main line. And then it just goes position something like this. Anytime white goes H5, you go H6, and you end up positioning like this when you castle queenside, and you've got a very solid pawn structure, and the idea is essentially just to go, not pawns like that, but essentially to do this with your pawns, and then just play on the queen side, move your rooks over. Oh no, I have to undraw all these fucking arrows. No more. Right. So yeah, that's Queen B1 variation in a nutshell. My opponent played Queen G5, which is the most, I would think is the most testing variation. And it's very similar to the poison pawn variation. There's two lines here. The old line and the new modern line. The old line is King F8, removing castling rights but defending the pawn. The new line is G6, and it's a very sketchy position. Black wants to castle queenside and then just start pushing this, but G6 creates weaknesses. And in fact, Black will usually have to play H6 to stop the bishop getting into this square. Let's stop coloring squares. Yeah, getting into this square, and just then Black can have ideas of this. Yeah. So that's the main line, and with that, that's the idea of Queen C6. I went for King F7, which is, it's a bit more solid. You lose castling rights, but it's an okay position. Your pieces usually go to similar places, and then your king usually ends up marching to the queen's marching to the queen side anyway. So my opponent had a think here, and I don't think he's looked very deeply into the Queen A5 variation, which again played into my hands, because I think he spent a ridiculous amount of time in the opening after here. I mean, we're move 8, and I think he spent something like 20 minutes on this move. And then, so the main move here is just queen back, because I'm threatening to take this pawn. There is a move with knight f6, and actually the main move isn't even taking that. I mean, you can take, and then after something like this, you bring back and then swap queens. That is a line. But I think after knight f6, the main line is knight c6, and then you just go this usual idea with b6 and bishop a6, which is a very common line in a lot of the French variations. Excuse me. Trying to trade off this notoriously bad bishop for white's very good bishop. He played, I'll be honest, a shocking move. He played king d1. And now was my turn to actually spend some time thinking. And I was trying to think what the difference was between this and then, say, the other queen g4 variation where the queen stays on where the queen stays on g4. And the differences I can think of were I no longer have this idea. But now he's not castled either. So I thought if I can play a move that I would probably have played in the knight f3 variations, and then he plays knight f3, my thinking was I'm clearly better because he's now wasted his tempo just playing king d1 where he didn't need to. So I was deciding either knight c3 or b6. Those are the two main moves. Not that this is actually a theoretical position, but these are, in this sort of position, those are the two candidate moves. I thought I'd go b6, and in the end it was just like, well, I've got two good moves here. What's the point of deliberating over which one to make first? And my idea was bishop here, so I thought I might as well just start off with that idea now. Strengthen my center, get the bishop out, trade the bad bishop off. If I trade these two bishops off with his king on d1, I think my position's pretty good. I can't remember what the computer evaluation was, but I'm pretty sure it was slightly better for black. If not that, then it's probably just dead equal. So I go b6. He goes knight f3, sorry. So in this position, I'm just like, right, well, I'm clearly better because I've used... Essentially, we're in the same position, except he's now gone... If I go back... yeah, we're in the same position now. And then it's going to be something like I go here and then he goes here, which is absolutely ridiculous. And then we're in a similar position. Yeah, it's just odd. So I go knight c3. I can go bishop a6, but I just thought I should probably just develop some pieces. And he does have some ideas going like this. So going knight c3 is a good idea, just to go knight b8 and defend that square. And the bishop here, I constantly have the idea of bishop a6, trading off the bishop. There's no way he can really stop it. Maybe if the king was still on e1, he could get, after going bishop e2, he can go bishop d1, but then he can't castle. Oh god, arrows, bane of my life. So yeah, so I can go knight c6, and it doesn't really make my position any worse. It's just a nice developing move and gives me a bit more options. He went h4, and in this position I was starting to think maybe he's looked through the games and he's sort of throwing all the ideas from all these different lines that White has at his disposal, all in the same opening. But again, king's on d1. It can't be brilliant for him. It can't be winning unless I completely just play some bad moves. So obviously the threat is just doing that and weakening my pawn structure. Oh, fucking arrows. But as I said earlier, I don't have to do anything until h5, and then I will play h6, which is standard in this position. I say in this position, but in these lines. So I carried on with my plan. Bishop h6, trading off the light squared bishops. I'm thinking if I trade off these bishops, my position's good because his is on d2, not really doing anything. And especially after we trade off these bishops, my queen's now on a6. It's not even looking at c2, so his king is completely pointless on that square. What the main computer suggestion, I think, was doing something like this, trading off those here. Yeah, this is all the main line. I say main line, this is the computer line. And then just trading off these. And I think black's just got a nice position here. My pawn structure's very nice and solid. These pawns are overextended. These are isolated. Yeah, I just say the position's closed as well, and I've got 2 knights against his 1. So again, that I would say that favors me. I do have an idea now in this position of going something like that, and then that knight's awesome. And then maybe moving this knight there. Yeah, this position. So even the computer line suggestion, I think, is just better for black. So h4, bishop a6. He traded off the bishops, and now, as I said, the king looks a bit stupid now guarding c2 because nothing's attacking it. He goes with h5. Didn't really take much time thinking on h6 because it's just sort of standard in this position. I don't want him. I can't let him go h6. So I'm going to play h6 instead. And then he starts playing very aggressively with rook h3. And when he started playing this, alarm bells were going off in my head where this back rank is now weak, so I always have this check in mind. But I have more pressing matters at the moment because his idea, and it's very caveman, is that, and it's a very powerful threat, but it doesn't actually. It's actually very easily refutable, and I think my move was the best. Was the top suggestion, knight e7. So ignoring this threat here, this king's not going to somehow escape the check on the back rank unless he plays back here or somehow defends that square, because he can't castle either way. So I've still got this idea of queen f1 check. But the idea I've got is if rook there, knight f5 hits the rook and defends g7 at the same time. When I played here, I fully expected that he might play what he did play, which was knight h4. So now if, I don't know, waiting move, something like that, he goes there. I don't have this because he takes, and I've lost my rook. So yeah, knight h4. So I need to defend g7 because he's going to go, as we said, rook g3 and attack g7. I can't push it because of the h5 pawn. And with his rook on g3, all his pieces are just barreling down here. And again, I come up with, which is a very logical move, just rook g8. I was, again, still thinking, do I have anything with this queen f1? And I spent a couple of minutes thinking on this. And in the end, I was thinking something along the lines of this might happen. So white abandoning his attack on g7 temporarily, and my queen sort of stranded. And so after some moves like this, I don't think the computer said there was much wrong with this position, but I'm not playing this. I'm not playing this position with my queen there. There's no way I'm playing that position. So yeah, I played rook g8. I abandoned the idea of queen f1 at the moment. And again, he played the idea of, or the nice idea, rook f3. With, again, new ideas of possibly that. Knight jumping in, maybe. In fact, does he? No, he doesn't. I was just thinking, did he have that? But no, he doesn't, because the queen's guarding the rook. So yeah, he plays this. So he's got all these ideas. And I just move into my third thinking of this position. So I've traded off the bishops. I've moved my knights to their active squares. I played h6 when he's played h5. I played g8, rook g8 when he's started attacking g7. Now I'm just playing my next idea in these positions, which is just essentially just to book it to the other side with my king, and then just play rook f7 and play on the king side with my pawns. Which yeah, this is I think the computer agrees it's a decent plan. He plays queen f4, and now this move the computer doesn't like, but I liked it because it set up a trap. The computer, I can't remember what the exact computer line was, but one of the lines it preferred was this rook knight d8 move, defending f7, allowing my king to go up. So I think the line is, so the rook goes here to stop this. So yeah, rook there to stop the queen infiltrating. My king can go up, goes a4 to gain more space on the queen side. My knight can move back to this, to c6. If takes, then rook f7 is winning the queen, because the queen has no more safe spots. But yeah, I saw the trappy move of going king d7 straight away. At this point, my opponent had, even back here, my opponent, I think here he had about 5 minutes, but up about here, he had about 1 minute left on his clock. So the rest of this game was a time scramble for him, and I have about 20 minutes left on my clock, because I'm just making practical choices. I'm not deliberating over moves. I'm just playing sensible moves in the position rather than deliberating over which of these two moves is better. I'm just going, both of these moves look good. I'd probably try and calculate an outcome a couple of moves ahead to see what the try and see what the position's like and try and evaluate that. It doesn't always work out in my favour. But I think he was really deliberating on what to do next or how to win quickly. But yeah, so this king d7 move, he didn't have a lot of time to think about it. And he just almost immediately just took on f7. And similar to the reasons in the other line, where the rook's on d3, I can play rook f8. And this does trade 2 rooks for the queen, which he promptly takes. But the problem in this position is, so his king's on d1, my queen has this check. The 2 rooks for the queens, the 2 rooks for the queen is usually better because 2 rooks are worth 5, queen's worth 9, blah blah blah. But the problem is the rooks are only better than the queen if the rooks can coordinate, and this rook's not doing anything. This rook's actually not even moved, and I don't think it ever moves in the game. This rook's not really doing anything. I mean, it can try and threaten here, or maybe go over here. But again, it's not really doing. It's not going to do much, and my threats are much more powerful. Here's where the computer doesn't like my play. It suggests going queen f1 straight away. We're after bishop a1, take, and if takes, knight takes, and then I'm mating. So after take, it suggests, I can't remember what it suggests now. It's probably something like this. Yeah. But it's, again, here, and this, knight's loose. Where's the knight going to go? It's a tricky position, and he can't make the most of, well, actually the rook's defending, but yeah, his pawns are dropping, they're all weak. My position's very solid, and his rooks can't coordinate, so the position's just better for me. So he takes. I instead took first. He didn't take back. Instead he played f4, and then I played the check. So bishop e1, and now I played pawn takes c3, with the main idea of just vacating the d4 square for my knight, so my queen can come in checkmate. He played rook f7, which the computer said was the losing move. Said that a better move was f5, and then after takes, e6, and then takes, and then it's just like, then it's just trying to, then it's just sacks pieces, pretty much. If the best computer line is sacking 2 pawns, and then losing, then I think you've got a good position. So he played rook f7, so I think his idea was going here and then threatening that, but my knight's defending. But even so, I have knight d4. I have knight d4, and the idea is I'm currently mating. I'm going to mate him in my next move. So he has to take now to delay it. Anything like this is like, oh, is immediately just winning. So yeah, he resigned in this position after seeing that he's getting mated, but the computer line, because I like to see the computer lines occasionally, is going check, and it not taking here because this is a slightly slower mate, because he gets an extra check in, but instead just going, which I think is quite baller, just going, no, I don't want your rook. You can, have the knight. You can't do anything. And then instead doing like this, it suggests g3 because it doesn't know what else it can do. King can't run away this way because I just take the bishop with checkmate. Moving the knight doesn't do anything, so yeah, g3 is as good as any other move. And now I have either mate here or mate there, whichever you prefer. So yeah, so the position we had at the end of the game was actually this move. And I was actually quite proud of this game. This was my third attempt with the Queen A5 Winawer. I'd played the poison pawn variation a couple of times, and then just some other sidelines of the Winawer. And I've enjoyed every game I've played with it, but I really like this Queen A5 variation. So at the moment, I think I'm going to keep this as my main variation at the moment until someone just completely destroys me, and then I just go, I don't want to play this anymore, this is rubbish. But yeah, that was my game. That's my last round. So I believe that's a draw and 3 wins out of the whole 8 games, which I didn't even play half of them, which I think is pretty good going. Yeah, if you have any comments or line suggestions that I overlooked, or any just ideas about the Queen A5 variation, or if there's anything you'd like me to do in these videos, or if you'd like me to do some other sort of analysis, please leave a comment. I do read all the comments, all 2 of them. So yeah, thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you next time.